The world is indifferent. It doesn't care about your struggles, your excuses, or your pain. It won't stop spinning because you're tired, and it won't pause because life feels unfair. David Goggins reminds us that waiting for the world to care is wasted energy. The truth is, no one's coming to rescue you. You either stay trapped in self-pity, or you rise above it by building a mindset so strong that nothing outside of you can control how far you go. Validation is one of the greatest traps of the modern world. We grow up being conditioned to look outward for approval. From the moment we're children, we crave recognition, applause, someone telling us we did a good job. And at first, it feels harmless, even necessary. But then it becomes poison. Because the more you depend on others to validate you, the more powerless you become when the world chooses not to care. And make no mistake, people are busy with their own lives, their own battles, their own ambitions. They don't lie awake at night thinking about your dreams. They don't carry your pain. They don't have to live inside your body or your mind. And yet, so many people waste years of their lives trying to earn the approval of others, begging for likes, waiting for applause, hoping for sympathy, searching for someone to say they're proud. But the truth is, you'll never build strength if your worth depends on the claps of the crowd. Strength is built when you stop chasing validation and start building it from within. David Goggins lived a reality that nobody cares. And when you really understand that, it sets you free. If nobody cares, then why do you keep performing for them? Why do you keep waiting for the world to notice your grind? Why do you think your pain, your tears, your sleepless nights will make people stop and give you credit? The world will move on whether you succeed or fail. And that is why you have to stop giving so much power to the opinions of others. Validation is a leash, and as long as you're tied to it, you'll always be controlled by someone else. One minute, the applause will make you feel unstoppable. The next minute, the silence will break you. Strength means you can keep moving no matter what the crowd says because you're not performing for them. You're building for yourself. Most people never realize how weak dependence on validation makes them until it's too late. Think about the athlete who trains his whole life to prove people wrong. For a while, that fuel works. The hater finds him fire. The doubters make him sharper. But what happens when the haters disappear? What happens when the crowd goes silent? If all of your motivation comes from outside, then your fire dies the moment the outside world stops feeding it. But when your strength is built internally, when you know who you are and you don't need anybody else to confirm it, then no amount of silence can kill your drive. No insult can shake you. No absence of applause can break you. Validation is an addiction, and like every addiction, it keeps you dependent and weak. You post your victories online because you want people to see, to comment, to say you're doing well. You look for people to congratulate you, to recognize your effort. And when they don't, you feel empty. That emptiness is the sign that you've been building your confidence sand, because true inner strength doesn't collapse when no one is watching. True strength doesn't crumble when there's no recognition. True strength thrives in silence, in obscurity, in the moments when you are grinding in the dark and nobody even knows your name. That's the kind of strength that can't be taken away because it was never given to you by others in the first place. Goggins teaches us that you have to become the type of person who doesn't just survive without validation, but who thrives without it. When you wake up in the morning, you don't need someone to tell you to get up. You don't need a motivational quote or a pat on the back. You get up because it's who you are. You train because it's in your DNA. You push yourself because you refuse to let your own mind control you. That is inner strength, knowing that your actions are not tied to applause, but to your own commitment to greatness. When you stop seeking validation, you start seeking standards. And when you hold yourself to a higher standard than anyone else ever would, you begin to live at a level most people can't even imagine. Inner strength is built in the shadows. It's built when you're working late while everyone else is sleeping. It's built when you're running in the rain while everyone else is inside complaining. It's built when you're doing push-ups alone in a room with no music, no camera, no audience, no recognition. Those are the moments that define you because they prove you don't need anyone else to push you. You push yourself. When you remove validation from the equation, what you're left with is raw discipline, raw accountability, raw ownership of your life. And ownership is power. When you own your decisions, your failures, your victories, and you stop waiting for someone else to stamp approval on your journey, you unlock a freedom that most people would never experience. The truth is, the world doesn't care about your excuses or your potential. It doesn't care about how unfair your circumstances are. It doesn't care about your sad story. The world responds to results, and even then, only for a moment. You could accomplish something incredible, and people will clap for a few seconds, maybe a few days, but then they'll move on. That's why building your strength on validation is useless. People's attention spans are short. Their memory of your greatness will fade. But if your strength is rooted in yourself, then no matter how quickly the world forgets, you remain unshaken. You keep showing up because you never did it for them in the first place. When you stop seeking validation, you stop fearing judgment. Most people are trapped by the opinions of others. They don't chase their dream because they're afraid of being laughed at. They don't push themselves to their limits because they're afraid of failing publicly. But what if you truly accepted that nobody cares? Suddenly, judgment doesn't matter. You can try, fail, get back up, and nobody's thinking about it because they're too busy living their own lives. Once you internalize that, you free yourself from fear. You become unstoppable because you realize the cage you thought was around you was never real. It was only the weight of imagined opinions. David Goggins became who he is not because people cheered him on, but because he refused to wait for their approval. He understood that validation is nothing compared to the fire inside you when you decide to live with purpose. He became his own validation, his own coach, his own motivator, his own standard. That's the level you must rise to. You have to stop asking for permission to be great. Stop asking if it's okay to go after what you want. Stop waiting for someone to clap before you take a step forward. Take it anyway. Run anyway. Grind anyway. Every time you rely on validation, you hand your power away. But every time you push yourself without it, you take that power back. Day by day, rep by rep, mile by mile, you carve strength into your bones. And the more you do it, the less you even think about the outside world. You stop needing them. You stop chasing them. You stop trying to prove yourself to people who were never watching in the first place. Instead, you prove yourself to the only person who matters, you. And when you've proven yourself to you, when you can look in the mirror and know that you gave everything you had, that's when you become unbreakable. So stop seeking validation. Build inner strength. Be your own standard, your own audience, the world doesn't care. And that's the greatest gift you'll ever receive. It means you're free to build yourself without limits, without permission, without waiting. It means you can be unstoppable. It means you can finally become the strongest version of yourself, not for applause, not for recognition, not for sympathy, but because it's who you choose to be. Pain is the most misunderstood force in human life. Most people spend their entire existence trying to avoid it, to numb it, to run away from it, to bury it under comfort, distraction, or excuses. We are raised to believe that pain is punishment, that if life hurts, something must be wrong. But the truth is the opposite. Pain is not here to destroy you. Pain is here to teach you. Pain is the only real teacher that can cut through your ego, your illusions, your excuses, and force you're truly made of. Without pain, there is no growth, no transformation, no evolution. Without pain, you remain the same, stuck in the same cycles, repeating the same mistakes, never breaking through the ceiling of your potential. Pain is the fire that burns away weakness. Pain is the classroom where strength is born. And yet, most people never learn its lessons because they're too busy running from it. David Goggins didn't become May because life was easy. He became who he is because he was willing to sit in pain longer than anyone else. He understood that pain is language. And if you listen closely, it tells you everything about yourself. It tells you where you're weak, where you're soft, where you've been lying to yourself, where you've been settling. Pain will expose your truth in a way nothing else can. You can fool the world with your smile, your bravado, your social media posts, but you can't fool pain. When you're out there, body breaking down, lungs on fire, legs screaming, mind begging you to quit, that's when pain steps in and asks the only question that matters, who are you? And in that moment, you can either collapse and prove that you are exactly who your excuses said you were, or you can rise and show that you are greater than the limitations you once believed in. Pain is not punishment. It is the invitation to transformation. Think about it. The gym is pain. Lifting heavy weights tears your muscles. Running long distances shreds your lungs. Pushing your limits breaks you down. But out of that pain comes growth. Your muscles repair stronger. Your heart pumps harder. Your endurance builds deeper. Without the pain of training, there is no strength. The same is true in life. The heartbreak, the loss, the rejection, the failures, these are all forms of pain. And every single one carries a lesson that can make you unbreakable if you're willing to learn from it instead of running from it. Most people never graduate from pain's classroom because they see it as a punishment. They say, why me? When pain hits. But the better question is, what is this trying to teach me? Every scar you carry, every hardship you've endured, every dark night where you felt like you couldn't go on. They were not punishments from life. They were gifts, brutal gifts wrapped in fire, meant to carve you into someone stronger than you ever imagined. But if you keep looking at pain as unfair, if you keep asking for sympathy instead of searching for strength, you will waste those gifts. Pain is always teaching, but you have to be willing to be the student. You have to humble yourself and recognize that the lessons won't come easy. They won't come soft. They won't come without discomfort, but they will always come if you're willing to endure. People who avoid pain live lives of quiet misery. They never push themselves, so they never discover themselves. They stay in the shallow waters, never daring to dive deeper because they fear the cold. But the deep is where life truly begins. Pain is the signal that you're leaving the shallow and entering the deep. That's why so many people quit when pain shows up. It feels like drowning. But if you hold on, if you push through, you discover that you can breathe underwater, that you can survive more than you thought, that you can adapt to conditions that once seemed impossible. Pain forces adaptation. Pain forces resilience. Pain forces growth. Without it, you would never evolve. The reason David Goggins runs ultramarathons, the reason he puts himself through hell again and again, is because he knows pain is the fastest path to growth. He doesn't look at pain and say, why me? He looks at pain and says, try me. Because he knows every time pain shows up, it's an opportunity to sharpen his mind, to test his spirit, to prove to himself that he's stronger than the weakness trying to drag him down. That's the shift you must make if you want to build real strength. Stop seeing pain as life attacking you and start seeing it as life training you. Every painful experience is preparing you for the next level. Every setback is a set up for growth. Every loss is a lesson that strengthens your foundation. Think about your own life. Every time you've grown, every time you become wiser, stronger, more resilient, it came from pain. You learned discipline because you faced the pain of failure. You learned patience because you endured the pain of waiting. You learned courage because you stood in the pain of fear. You learned love because you felt the pain of loss. Pain shapes the human soul in ways comfort never will. Comfort coddles you. Pain educates you. Comfort keeps you soft. Pain makes you hard. Comfort makes you dependent. Pain makes you free. Most people beg for comfort without that comfort is what keeps them weak. They complain about pain without realizing that pain is the very thing that will save them. You don't grow when things are easy. You don't grow when everything goes your way. You grow when you're tested, when you're stretched, when you're pushed beyond your limits. That's why pain is not punishment, it's proof. Proof that you're being challenged to rise. Proof that life sees potential in you. Proof that you are being carved into someone greater. But here's the secret: pain only teaches those who are willing to face it. If you numb it, you run from it, you stay the same. If you cover it with distractions, addictions, excuses, then pain has to come back stronger the next time because you didn't learn the lesson. That's why some people keep going through the same struggles over and over again, because they never sat still long enough to hear what pain was trying to teach them. If you want to stop repeating cycles, you must stop treating pain like punishment and start treating it like your mentor. David Goggins calls it the callus of the mind. Just like your hands get tougher when you lift weights, your mind gets tougher when you face pain. Every time you endure instead of quitting, every time you face hardship instead of running, every time you push past the point where you once stopped, you're building mental calices. Those calices protect you. They make you stronger. They remind you that you've been through hell before and you can go through it again. Pain teaches resilience is the foundation of greatness. So the next time pain shows up, don't run. Don't ask for sympathy. Don't see it as life being cruel. See it as life handing you a mirror, showing you who you are and who could become. See it as training, as preparation, as education. Lean into it, breathe through it, endure it. Because on the other side of pain is the version of you that you've been chasing your entire life. The world doesn't care about your excuses. It doesn't care about your comfort. But pain cares enough to break you so you can build yourself stronger. Pain is not punishment. Pain is the greatest teacher you will ever have. If you're willing to learn, life is full of chaos, full of noise, full of distractions that pull you in every direction and make you forget what really matters. Everywhere you turn, someone is talking, someone is doubting, someone is complaining, someone is trying to drag your focus away from the mission. And the truth is, you cannot control most of it. You cannot control what people say about you. You cannot control how life unfolds. You cannot control the storms that come your way. But you can control yourself. You can control how you respond, how act, how you think, how you move forward. That's where true power lies. Most people waste their lives fighting battles they cannot win, trying to change people's opinions, trying to control circumstances they have no say over, trying to fix what is beyond their reach. And while they burn out chasing the uncontrollable, their own strength fades, their own discipline erodes, their own potential rots. David Goggins teaches us that the only way to build real strength is to control the controllables and ignore the noise. The noise is endless. It comes from the outside: friends, family, strangers, society. They all have opinions about who you are, what you should do, what you can't do. They'll project their insecurities, their failures onto you. They'll tell you it's impossible. They'll laugh at your goals. They'll criticize your efforts. And then there's the noise inside your own head, the loudest noise of all: the fear, the excuses, the negative voice that tells you to quit. You cannot stop that noise from existing, but you can choose whether to listen to it. If you try to fight every critic, if you try to silence every voice, you'll waste your energy and lose your way. The secret is to let the noise play in the background while you stay locked in what you can control. Your effort, your discipline, your consistency, your attitude. Control is about ownership. You cannot control the weather, but you can control whether you run in the rain. You cannot control if someone insults you, but you can control whether you let it define you. You cannot control if life hands you pain, but you can control whether you let pain break you or build you. Every time you focus on what you cannot control, you give away your power. Every time you lock in on what you can control, you take it back. Most people complain because complaining feels good in the moment. It feels like action, but it solves nothing. Complaining is noise. Blaming others is noise. Waiting for circumstances to change is noise. The only signal you need to pay attention to is the one inside you that says, get up, take action, own your life. David Goggins became who he is because he mastered the art of controlling the controllables. He couldn't control being born into abuse, poverty, and hardship. He couldn't control the racism, the rejection, the failures, but he could control his response. He could control whether he stayed a victim or became a warrior. And that choice, that focus transformed him. The same principle applies to you. You cannot control where you started, but you can control where you end up. You cannot control the hand you were dealt, but you can control how you play it. Stop wasting your life wishing for a different past, for easier conditions, for people to treat you better. None of that is in your hands. What is in your hands is the discipline to get up earlier, the grit to train harder, the focus to stay locked in when the world tries to distract you. Noise is dangerous because it steals your attention. Every second you give to noise is a second stolen from progress. Every argument, every distraction, every attempt to prove people wrong is wasted energy. You don't need to prove them wrong. You need to prove yourself right. You don't need to respond to every critic. You need to keep working until your results speak louder than their noise. Let them talk, let them doubt, let them laugh. None of it matters. Because when the lights go out and you're alone with yourself, the only question that matters is, did you control what you could? Did you give everything you had? Did you stay true to your standard? The greatest battles are always internal. The outside world is loud, but the inside world can be deafening. That voice in your head will try to convince you to stay in bed, to take it easy, to quit when it hurts. You cannot silence that voice permanently, but you can control how you respond to it. Every time it's tough to stop, you answer with action. Every time it says you can't, you prove that you can. That is how you build mastery over yourself. By refusing to let the noise dictate your decisions. Control the controllables, wake up, train, focus, discipline, consistency. These are within your grasp every single day. If you master them, the noise loses its power. Think about how much energy people waste on things they cannot control. They get angry about traffic. They get bitter about people not supporting them. They get jealous about others' success. They scroll through social media comparing themselves to people they don't know. All of it is noise, and all of it keeps them weak. Because while they're focused outward, the inward discipline is rotting. The real champions, the real warriors, tune out the noise and zero in on their lane. They know their race is with themselves, not with anyone else. They know that the world will always be noisy, but progress is always silent. When you stop chasing what you cannot control, you find freedom. You stop caring about opinions. You stop worrying about outcomes. You stop stressing about things that were never yours to manage in the first place. That freedom gives you focus. And with focus comes power. You become relentless, untouchable, unshakable. Because no matter what storm rages outside, your foundation is steady. You're not wasting energy trying to stop the storm. You're controlling your sails, steering your ship, moving forward no matter how violent the waves. David Goggins says the mind is the most powerful weapon you'll ever have, but only if you control it. If you let it be controlled by noise, it becomes your greatest enemy. If you train it, discipline it, focus it, it becomes unstoppable. Every day, life will test whether you're in control of your mind or whether your mind is in control of you. When the alarm goes off and you don't want to get up, who's in control? When your body screams in the middle of a workout, who's in control? When the world mocks your dreams, who's in control? The answer to that question decides everything. You cannot stop the noise, but you can choose to rise above it. You can choose to focus only on what you can do, what you can control, what is in your power today. That's the secret, not control over the world, but control over yourself. That's how you win. That's how you become unbreakable. That's how you silence the noise. Not by fighting it, but by being so locked in on your mission that it fades into the background, irrelevant, powerless. The world doesn't care and it never will. But you should. You should care enough to control what you can, to give everything you have, to rise above the noise and of your life completely. Because once you stop wasting energy on what you cannot control, you'll discover how much power you've had all along. And that power, that focus, that discipline will take you further than the noise could ever imagine. Power is something everyone talks about, but very few truly understand. People think power is about money, status, followers, fame, or control over others. But that kind of power is fragile. It can be taken away with one bad decision, one shift in circumstances, one moment of weakness. Real power, the kind that cannot be stolen or destroyed, comes from one place: self-mastery. The ability to master your own mind, your own emotions, your own actions, your own habits. That is the only true power. Because if you cannot control yourself, you will always be controlled by something else. Your fears, your cravings, your laziness, your anger, your need for validation. The outside world will always own you until you own yourself. David Goggins built his entire life around the pursuit of self-mastery. He was not born with power. He was abused, overweight, insecure, and lost. The world didn't hand him strength, discipline, or resilience. He had to take it. And he took it by going to war with himself every single day, by breaking the old version of who he was and forcing himself to rise as someone stronger. That's the lesson. If you don't master yourself, life will master you. If you don't take control of your own mind, it will betray you. If you don't take control of your habits, they will destroy you. If you don't take control of your emotions, they will chain you. Mastery is not about being perfect. It's about refusing to let weakness sit in the driver's seat of your life. Think about the average person. They want success, but they don't control their impulses. They want health, but they can't control their diet. They want discipline, but they can't control their sleep. They want wealth, but they can't control their spending. They want respect, but they can't control their emotions. They're prisoners, slaves to their own lack of self-control. And because they can't master themselves, they'll never have lasting power. They'll always be swayed by temptation, broken by obstacles, distracted by noise. That's why Goggins preaches the truth that mastery of self is the only path to real freedom. If you can master your mind, you can endure anything. If you can master your emotions, you can stay calm in any storm. If you can master your actions, you can create results no one else believes possible. Self-mastery is built in the smallest choices, the daily decisions that seem insignificant but ultimately define who you are. It's in whether you hit snooze or get up, whether you choose the workout or the couch, whether you keep your word or break it, whether you face your fears or hide from them. Every moment of every day, you are either practicing mastery or practicing weakness. And the more you practice one, the more natural it becomes. That's why most people are weak. They've trained themselves to be. They've given in so many times that surrender has become their default. But you can train yourself the other way. You can make discipline the default, strength the default, focus the default. It all starts with mastering one choice at a time. The hardest battlefield is always within. You can conquer the outside world, achieve success, win praise, but if you don't conquer yourself, it will all collapse eventually. History is full of powerful people who had influence over nations but couldn't control their own greed, their own pride, their own vices, and it destroyed them. That's why Goggins says the toughest man alive isn't the one with the biggest muscles or the fastest times. It's the one who wakes up every day and refuses to let weakness win. The one who keeps promises to himself when nobody is watching. The one who looks in the mirror and demands more. The one who is brutally honest about his flaws and relentless about fixing them. That is mastery. Most people run from themselves because they're afraid of what they'll find. They drown themselves in traction so they don't have to face the truth. But Goggins teaches us to do the opposite. To face ourselves directly, to confront our demons, to sit in silence and look in the mirror until we see the truth. And once you see it, you take ownership of it. No more excuses, no more blaming others, no more running. You own your weaknesses so you can destroy them. You own your fears so you can overcome them. You own your fears so you can learn from them. That is the process of mastery, and it's brutal, but it's the only way to become free. Self-mastery is not glamorous. It's not about the spotlight. It's not about applause. It's about the grind that nobody sees, the sacrifices nobody celebrates, the battles nobody claps for. It's about saying no to your cravings, no to your excuses, no to your laziness when nobody would know if you said yes. It's about pushing yourself to do the hard thing simply because you refuse to let weakness win. That's why it feels lonely, because the path of mastery is walked in silence and discipline and sacrifice. But that's also why it's so powerful, because very few are willing to walk it. When you master yourself, you become unstoppable because nothing outside of you can control you. Temptation loses its grip. Critics lose their power. Circumstances lose their sting. Because you no longer move based on emotion, validation, or fear. You move based on choice. Your choice. And that is the essence of true power, the ability to decide who you are, how you act, and how you respond regardless of the world around you. You stop being a slave to your environment and start being the architect of your own destiny. David Goggins didn't get there overnight. He built mastery brick by brick through endless repetition, through pain, through failure, through brutal self-honesty. He learned to do the things he hated because he knew that was where growth lived. He learned to push past the point of breaking because he knew that's where strength was forged. He learned to control his mind instead of letting his mind control him. That's the model. That's the blueprint. Not perfection, but relentless pursuit of control over yourself. Self-mastery will test you. It will break you down. It will force you to confront the parts of yourself you'd rather ignore. But once you've tasted it, once you've experienced what it feels like to own yourself fully, you'll never go back. Because no external achievement compares to the internal victory of knowing you are your own master. That you don't need the world to validate you, that you don't need circumstances to be perfect, that you don't need comfort or permission. You have yourself, and that is enough. At the end of the day, a form of power fades. Money, status, fame, recognition. They're temporary, they're fragile, they're dependent on others. But self-mastery endures. It cannot be taken away. It cannot be stolen. It is yours forever, and it is the foundation of everything else. With it, you can build discipline, resilience, strength, freedom. Without it, everything you build will crumble eventually. That is why self-mastery is the only true power. Because when you own yourself, you own your life.